Hi, this is Roger, and welcome back to creating your own 11 ball video game. Last time we were here, we finished doing multiple rounds for each player and multiple players. And this time we're going to start setting up for the highest scores, saving the highest scores, retrieving the highest scores, determining if you need to be on the high score rating, etc. But as always, before we go on to something new, I need to correct problems that I put in to start with. And if you remember how when we did the rack ball, we selected, and let's say like 10-1, let's just go ahead and do it. It would not get rid of the ball until we selected another one. Well, we have the same similar problem here. Let's say I pick it here and take score. This will disappear. This won't disappear. It still stays there. Now it'll change once I click. Now it'll change to 10 and then go back to 0. But we need to correct that. And also, we need to correct where you cannot do any user input until all the balls are put on the table. I'll show you here, like, okay, we're on round 1, player 2. See, I can go ahead and take the score right now, and the balls aren't even laid out. And I need to stop that, because it'll go ahead and do the balls several times, actually. And also you can select the ball. Let me start it over. When the ball is being dealt, you can select it, and you should be able to select the balls until it's how it went out. Shouldn't be able to do that. So let's get to the code. And like I said, remember on when we did the label rack count, we put 11 running total. The label running total, we set it to 0 to clear it. What we should have done was put it in this clear selection, because we already are clearing the selection off of, before every round starts. So we need to go ahead and just take that off of there and go up here to the clear selection and just put it at the very bottom of that. And that should correct that problem from now on, because we're already running the clear selection. So as soon as it clears, that'll disappear just as soon as that disappears. So that fixed that. And the other one is easy enough to fix. We go up here to our start round. That's why we reset the disable game. Let's go ahead and disable the game at the start of the round. It's already disabled at the end of the round, but let's go ahead and keep it disabled. And then when the balls are thrown onto the table, on the initial table load, after all the balls are thrown onto the table and the timer is set and everything, let's go ahead and say disable game equals false. Now we shouldn't be able to, it should not accept any user input other than exiting the game out. I can't select anything. Oops, I should have hit the wrong button. It's not letting me select anything. And let me run it one more time and try to take the score before the balls are dealt. I'm trying to click it and it won't let me do it. So that's all corrected. Now the next thing we have to do is start setting up for high score. Okay, initially I thought that each player could get a high score during the same game if both of them scored well. But I went to my local tavern the other night and I saw that only one player out of the two can get the high score, regardless of the fact that both of them had really good scores. So when I preset the game up the other day on the end round, I set it up to see if they have high score, but we don't need to worry about this because it's only at the end of the game and it's only for one player. So we'll put this in the in-game section, which is right below it. So to start with, let's the game is over with, and we're going to set the current player to player 1, which is 0. And then we're going to check to see if player 2 score is higher than player 1 score. So if score uh, 1, which is player 2, is greater than or equal to score 0, which is player 1, then current player is equal to 1. And the thing is, if it's only a one-player game, then player 2 score is always going to be 0 because at the start of the game it presets it to 0. So player 1 score will always be better than player 2 if it's a single-player game. So basically we just determine if it's a 2-player game, who has the highest score. Then from there we need to start checking against our top 10. So we're going to put a loop here for I equals 0 to 9 if score of the current player is greater than or equal to high score I, then, but we're gonna need a temp flag. So let's go right above here and put our temp win as Boolean. Dim temp win as Boolean equals false. So if the high scoring player is higher than one of the scores in the top 10 rank, then we're going to set our temp win equals true. And then we're going to have to move the scores down. So let's say it was player number 8, we're going to have to move score 8 down to 9 and then put the new score into location 8. So we'll need another loop. Let me go back. We need to put a minus step here because we're going backwards. Okay. And we're going to reset our high scores. High scores II plus 1 is equal to high scores II. And we might as well do the names at the same time. And I see up here one too many ones. Okay, so basically what we're doing, we determine which player is the highest score. Then we set current player to that player. Then we check to see if that score for that player is higher. We're going to go through a loop, see if it's higher than any one of them. If it finds one that it's equal to or greater than, then it's going to say, yes, I found a spot to go. I do get to be a winner. And then let me fix that to a minus. So I do get to be, yes, I am a winner. And then it's going to move the scores down, and it's going to start from the bottom score and work its way up. The reason we start with 8 instead of 9 is, let's say it is position 9, there's no scores we need to move, because then we would just leave the scores alone and just replace score 9 with the new score. So we start with 8, and then, like I said, if it was score 7, we'd move 8 to 9, and then we'd move 7 to 8, and then we'd put the new score in location 7. So after we go through this loop here, we need to go ahead and store our new high score. So high score I, because that's the location we found it at, is equal to the score of the current player. And we might as well do the name, even though we don't have a, let me get this straight. Even though we don't have a name yet, let's go ahead and set the name to an empty, just so the old name is not there. Make some room. Okay, now we need to check, did we have a score that's a winner? So if temp win is true, then what we need to do is go ahead and put the winner graphics up there. And there's no graphics at all in this start with, so we need to go ahead and get that set up. So let's just copy from the draw game right here these two. And all we're doing is we're setting our game image, which is our canvas, to our original 11 ball background with no balls or anything. We're just resetting it fresh. And then we're setting our drawing object, our graphics object, equal to it. Now we need to go ahead and we'll go down here and copy our winner graphics. Where is that winner? Wrong place. And we need to find out which player it is. So if current player is equal to 0, then let's get our graphics for player 1. And if it's player 2, which is 1, we need to get our graphics for player 2. I forgot something up here too. When we go through the loop, I need to go right here. When it found it, put an extra line in. We need to exit the for loop, because there's no reason to keep on checking all the scores. Once we found a score, there's no reason to keep checking the rest. So we'll exit out of this loop. And then we're getting back to our drawing of graphics. Let's see here. We got our refresh our background. We show the winner image, and we show which player it is. And let's go ahead and set the score up there. So label score is equal to score dot text is equal to score current player and label player dot text is equal to current player plus 1, because our players are 0 and 1. That way in the background it will at least show which player it is, and it'll show the score. And that should be good enough. Now, and then we need to go ahead and do our background. Let's just go ahead and copy it from down here where it says me.background for game image and to the dispose. Okay, so we put our graphics in, we set our labels, we reset our background to the image, we dispose of our graphics object, and let me just say me.refresh. And let's go ahead and wait. Let's say wait for a second and a half. Okay. So now it'll show the winner's name, the player number, the winner graphic. It'll show the scores that were up there, and it'll wait a second and a half before it does anything else. Now this is actually the end of the game, so it won't do anything. So what we really need to do is right here. This is where we'll be pulling up our other form where the player can put his name in. Okay, we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to, but this is where it's going to go. But before we do that, we're going to have to set our high scores. Right now there's nothing in them. They're blank. We have them up here, but there's nothing in them. And so they're basically empty. So we need to load the high scores, and we need to be able to save the high scores. And while I'm right here, we're going to need 2 more variables, because since we're talking to an additional form, we need some variables that we can pass information from this form to that form. And normally we say dim and then put the variable number in, but since we're passing it between forms, I need to use public. And I'm going to name the variable's high score name as integer, and public high score rank as integer. Oops, I messed up there. That should be, the name should be string. So basically, when we pull the, I'm going to call it the high score form. When we pull the high score form up, it's going to be, we'll be sending the ranking to it, so it can show you what position you ranked at. And then when the user puts the name in there, it'll be going into the high score name that will be passed back to this form. But like I said, to start with, before we can do all that, we need to set up our high scores. Now, traditionally, some people put them in a file, a separate file where you have to keep track of, or it'll create as you go, take the game from computer to computer. And then if you lose that file, it'll start fresh, or have to create one. I'm not going to use a file. I'm going to be using the system registry. And let me get back to the game here. The in-game, there we go. Anyways, I'm going to be using the system registry. If you've never heard of the registry, basically it's a place where most software applications keep information such as user preferences, or in this case, previous scores, previous files you've used. So it's something built into Windows, and we can use it. And that's what I'm going to go ahead and use that. So let me kind of show you how you can get to it. Okay, to start with, let's go over here on your Windows, right click it, say run, and type in regedit, REGEDIT, and hit OK. And then say yes, and you're actually looking at the systems registry. And these right over here, these are the main categories. I believe they call them hives. And the one we're going to be working with is where it says current user. You open it up, and then these are all the little subcategories. This is almost like a path for folders, but we're going to be putting ours under software, and we're going to be creating a folder that says 11 ball. See, there's not one there, but let's just see if we can pull something up. Google Chrome. I have no idea what this is used for, but see how it has the name, the type, and the data. We're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be saying on the name, we'll be saying like score 1 through score 10, name 1 through name 10, and the value. So that's what we're going to be doing. Just close it. Like I said, we're going to have it under the current user, under software. So now to use the system registry, we need to go all the way up here to the top above the 11 ball, and we need to import Microsoft .win32, and then we need to add an item in our variables. I'm going to call it R key for registry key as registry, as a registry key. Now we need to come down here to the very bottom, and we're going to create two new subroutines. I'm going to call the first one private sub load high scores, and I'm going to say private sub save high scores. Okay, on the save one, the first thing we need to do is kind of like set up a path. So we're going to say R key equals registry dot current user dot open subkey. The subkey we're looking for is software. Remember how I showed you it's under current user we have software. So we need a parentheses and put software and move over, and then we need true. What true means is that we're able to write. If we said false, we wouldn't be able to write to it. So basically we've created a path. Now we're going to be creating another subkey. R key dot create a subkey, and we're going to name it 11 ball. And then after that, we need to change our key back to basically our path. This may not be the best way of looking at it or saying it, but this is the best way I can remember it. I said because our key was a path, and then we used that path to create another subkey. Now I want to reset our key to our new path. So our key equal registry dot current user dot open subkey, and it's software and backslash 11 ball. Okay, now the thing is, if the folder or the key, sub key is already there, it won't change anything. But if it isn't there, it will create one. Now, unfortunately, we can't use the loop to load anything. So what we have to do each one at a time. So, like R key dot set value, and then we need to put what our name is going to be, and we're going to call this high score 1, comma, and whatever we want to put in this place, we're going to be putting. I tell you what, let me just say score 1 instead of high score. And it's, whoops. Put the title of it, and now we need the value. And the value is going to be high score 0. Now we're going to have to do this for every single one. So let me just copy and paste. Change our names. And then change our array index. And let's do it again, and let's change it to name. And change this to high score names. Whoop. Let me take that S off. Copy this and paste. Let's change our names of them. And change our index. And at the very end, we got to remember to say rkey.close so we can close the registry back up. So just to, okay, now to load the high scores, we need to open up the registry again, just like we did here. Oh, and I made a mistake. When we open this one up, I forgot to say true. Okay, so anyways, we need to go ahead and do the same thing, copy it. When we open up a registry, let me go ahead and just say rkey.close so I don't forget it. And now we need to get our values. So we're going to be getting high scores. And it's going to be set to the key, our key, spell it right, dot get value. Now on this one we need to name what we're looking for, which in this case would be score 1, comma, and then there's a default value. If there's nothing there, let's set a default value, which I will make as 0. And once again, let's copy and paste. And reset our index. And let's set our name. And change it again, and this time we want high score names. And this will be name. Now the default for this, since it's a string, let's go ahead and put just 3 question marks. Copy it, paste, reset our index, and reset our labels, our names. And yes, we gotta close our registry. Alright, so this will set, this will load the arrays, and this will save the arrays. You know, I was just thinking we have a slight problem here, because the very first time you run this, if there is no registry, when you load the high scores, you'll probably get an error. So what we need to do is create another sub, private sub, and I'll call it initialize registry. And we can actually use this later on when we want to reset the high scores. Excuse me. So let's go up here on this to save high scores and copy this part. And put it down here. And let's go up here and take this part off, the first 2 lines. So when we initialize a registry, we will be creating the path. So, and we don't, and what we need to do here is preload. Let me get up here ahead of this. Let's preload the high score and the high score name. So for I equals 0 to 9, high score names dot I, not dot I, index I dot not dot equals, we'll do our 3 question marks, and high scores index I is equal to 0. So we'll preload them. And now let's see. We'll just go ahead and copy this part off of the save high scores. And actually, we don't even need to do that. Just take this off. We create a registry, that's all we got to do, and then we close it. And then we'll just run save high scores. So we initialize our arrays of high score and high score names. We create our sub key. We close it. Then we run the save high scores, which will save our default ones, which will be 0 and no name basically. And now let's go up here to form load. And say load high scores. So when the game's first ran, we go to load high scores. We come out here to load high scores. Now before we do all that, now we need to check. We need to check and see if that sub key is there. If Microsoft dot Win32 dot registry dot current user dot open subkey, and it was in software, /11 ball is nothing, then okay, if it's nothing, then what we want to do is initialize the registry. And then once it initializes the registry, it'll come back and then it'll load the registry. So that should do it. Yeah. Okay, so the next step would be, I said when we loaded the high score in to start with, and we need to go to game over, in round, game, in game. And here's the temp win. We showed it scored. Just for now, let me just go ahead and say save high scores. Even though we're not pulling our form up. Let's just do that and see what it does. Right, that's good enough. I said we'll make player 1 win. Okay, so player one score is going to end up being 18,800. Okay, it put the score up there. It showed it was player one that won. Player one won here. Winner. Have to wait a second and a half, so that should be good enough. And let's check our registry. So there's the 11 ball. There's our names. Remember, we preset it to 0. It put it in the score 1, and it said it was 1880. So that part's working. So what we really need to do is here, load high score form. Thank you for watching, and don't forget, if you like the video, please select the thumbs up, give me a like, and hit the little box that says subscribe. Thank you.